Hey everyone, welcome back to Devirai Technologies. In this video, we'll be indexing data in Azure AI Search Index. We'll be using .NET for indexing and we'll be working with the client libraries using Azure SDKs for Azure AI Search. Let's get started. Before starting, let me quickly show you the documentation that we'll be following along with the code snippets provided by the documentation. And also we'll be building Azure function application using HTTP trigger so that I can trigger it from my Postman application. Then I can index all the data by just calling one API. Also, if time permits, I'll also deploy the application to Azure. Okay, so let's get started. In this video, we'll be only targeting the keyword based search. There are 5 strategies. One is keyword, second is semantic, third one is hybrid, that is called vector only, fourth one is vector plus keyword, and last one is vector plus semantic. So I'll go through all the 5 strategies and help you in indexing them. In this scope of the video, we are only going to target the full text, that is a keyword based search, and we're going to index only the data that requires that. So we'll not be creating any embeddings, we'll not be creating any configuration for the semantic search, we'll just work on the full text search. Okay, here you can see the search engine for vector search, full text and hybrid search. So we are currently only focusing on the full text search. And for indexing purpose, I'm going to utilize the free version of Azure AI Search. The reason being, I'll not be connecting this to Azure OpenAI service. I'm only going to show you how it works for the indexing. To connect to the Azure OpenAI, you need to upgrade the plan to the basic or standard or higher ones. So, just for this tutorial, I'm going to use the free version, but if you're connecting it to Azure OpenAI, make sure you're on the paid plan. Okay. The reason I'm making this video after long time because Azure AI Search was still in preview. Well, it was a stable version, but with regard to the indexing, most of the libraries were still in preview, but now it is stable. We have a stable version of all the client libraries. That's the reason I'll be creating this video now. Okay. I can also just look at the documentation. I'm not sure whether it is been updated or not. So let's try it out. So I am going to work with a full text search. And we have the Azure SDK for .NET, Python, Java and JavaScript. I'm going to work with Azure SDK for .NET. And let me open this in new tab as well. Okay. Here you'll get up-to-date information about how to use these client libraries. In actual documentation, some of the information still be outdated, but if you go to this Azure SDK for .NET page and browse through the libraries that you need, here you will get up-to-date information. If you still want to have very recent details, then you can also check out the NuGet package link. There also you will find few of the samples available. Okay, so let's get started. Let me start by creating the Azure AI search first, and then we can start by indexing. I'm going to go with very slow in this series because there will be many different concepts that I'll be teaching here. In the first video, I'm only going to target the static JSON that is with me, and I'm going to upload that as an index. So I already have a JSON file, and the same JSON file I'm going to read and upload as an index in Azure AI Search. In few upcoming videos, I'm going to read a document such as PDF, text documents. Then I'm going to chunk it down and then index them. So there will be many different approaches that I'll be working with. So just stay tuned. So in this video, I will just create a random JSON file and I'm going to read that JSON and then index it. Okay. So let's get started by creating the AI search. Okay, I already have a AI search ready. Since I created a language service, I think under free plan, so I can utilize this. That will be much better. If you don't know how to create a Azure AI search, we have already created a lot of videos previously by connecting to Azure OpenAI and Azure AI search. You can just go through those videos. Okay. All right. So the first thing first, open Visual Studio, create a new project. As I said earlier, I'll be creating Azure function, Azure AI search indexing. I'll be creating multiple functions. So this is my project name, but I'll be creating multiple functions. Let's next. Hopefully I have .NET 8 ready here. Perfect. Okay. Then as I said earlier, I'll be working with HTTP trigger. The reason being an advantage of this HTTP trigger would be if I have a web application that I create and ask the user to upload a document, then after user uploads a document, I can call this API I can call this Azure function through HTTP trigger to index my data. So that is the quickest and easiest way to do it. I can also work with the console application, but it's good practice that I start with the HTTP trigger, Azure function. Okay. All right. So create. Perfect. I'll be going very slow, showing each and every code piece that I write or copy paste from the documentation. Perfect. So the first Azure function that I'm going to create is full text search JSON index. Okay. So I'm going to create multiple functions. I can also create one function and then using if else condition, I can just go to the respective methods. So I think let's create one function and then we can go from there. That will be much better. Indexing function. Okay. Let's say yes. As you can see, my class name and constructor name got changed as soon as I changed the file name. If these doesn't get changed automatically in your version of Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio, you need to manually change them. Okay. Let's see program.cs. The good part about using .NET 6, 7, 8 is that you can take advantage of dependency injections right from your Azure function. All right, since this did not get changed, let me just copy paste this one. So my function name is indexing function now. All right, so let me quickly run this up and see how it looks like. I'll have this log message on my console application, and also this will be returned when I call this API. So let me just quickly run this, how it works as of now. So this is my endpoint URL. This works both on the get and post request. So let's copy this endpoint URL, open Postman. I'm going to create just a blank workspace. Let's create one. Add a request. Let me paste this. It doesn't have any body, so I'm going to just call this as it is. Here you can see welcome to Azure function, and let me open the console application and show you the logger. This was the log message that was present inside our function class, and also this is the response that we have got. This was a log message and this was a response that we got. I can also modify this Azure function to take JSON request, to take JSON body as a request, and then based on that JSON body I can work anyhow. Okay, let's make it very generic so that it works for all the requirements that I have been getting. First of all, let's get rid of this get request. I only want to work with a post request because I'm going to add a JSON request body into this. Okay, let me rerun this. Before that, let me close this. I'm not sure whether the hot reload is available for Azure Functions. Perfect. So this only works on the post request now. I open my Postman. If I try just get request, I should get not found. That's correct. Yes. And if I change this to post request now, then I should get some response. Welcome to Azure function. Okay. So why did I make that as a post request? Because I wanted to add a JSON request body. Let's try. The first thing that I want to add is indexing type. Okay. So let me just open up Notepad quickly. Okay. So now how can I increase the size? Let me see. I'm not sure how I can zoom it here. I think this is the one. Yes. Okay, hopefully this is perfectly visible to you all. So the first video or the first indexing type that I'm trying to build is full text search with JSON file as input. And I'm going to name this type as full text search JSON. That will be better. So that's my indexing type. Let me quickly paste that up here. Next, semantic search with JSON file as input. Okay, let me make that as semantic search JSON. Okay, third one would be vector search with PDF file as input. Vector search PDF. Fourth one will be hybrid. Hybrid. Okay, hybrid keyword. Let me make this as hybrid keyword with PDF. Let me make that JSON. Okay, since we came to hybrid, right? So let me make that PDF only. PDF file as input. Hybrid keyword PDF. Okay. And last one would be hybrid semantic with PDF. Hybrid semantic PDF. Okay. So these are my types, the indexing types that I'm going to work with. Remember, these are not official. This is only for my understanding because I'm building the application, I'm building the logic. So it has nothing to do with any official types that are supported. So let me just copy this and paste it. Okay, I've already done. So that's my indexing type. Okay. If suppose I might have PDF, the blob storage, right? Where I can get those PDF files, then I can add that blob container as well and blob name as well. But for now, I'm good with the indexing type. But how would I get that JSON file? Okay, so let me think of a way. Let's try with the local version as of now. Okay, since we're making it everything perfect, so let's make it perfect. Let's say blob container. Next, blob name. Let me do one thing instead of blob name because in ideal production scenarios, you dump everything into a blob container and then you try to index them all, right? So let's follow that approach. Perfect. So this is it. Let me quickly put a breakpoint here and see how am I getting that. So how am I getting this request? So let me put a breakpoint here. The reason being I have to shut down this console application every now and then. Let me just give JSON files. That is my container name. Okay, let me hover over request and see the body stream. Okay, I need to read that HTTP data. What else we have? Body. Okay, it's still in bytes. I haven't, it is not converted to string yet. So let's convert that here. So let me just put reading JSON request body. Okay. read the JSON request body as a string. Perfect. So that will have my request body, and I can also put that to logger. Let's say, let's try to print that. JSON request input body. Okay, perfect. Let's start again. You might be thinking that it's very slow, but yes, we are going step by step, taking baby steps. That's the reason we are making it everything really slow and nice and steady. Okay, so go next, request body. So there it is. If I just open up here, here comes our request body. Perfect. Indexing type, blob container name. That's good. And the same thing, we are printing it here on the console. And where it is, okay, still not printed. Let me just go next. There it is. JSON request input body, and this we are printing on the console. It's just for debugging purpose, nothing else. Make sure you do not input any confidential information on the console. Okay, so this is good, nice. Next, we'll create a models project. That will be a class library. Okay, so here I'll be keeping all my model classes. Let me also make one service library. Azure AI Search indexing dot services. Okay, perfect, perfect. Next, since I wanted to start with the first one would be function system. Let's rename that index indexing function request. I'm going to mention what I'm doing right now. I'm creating properties of the fields that I'm passing. Indexing type, indexing type. That's what I'm doing. The second property is blob container name. So I created two of the properties, indexing type and blob container name. All right, all right. So let me start by adding the connection string, or if I say the storage account name, that will be much better. Azure blob storage URI. That will be much better. Just, I think that let's use Azure storage account name. The reason I'm using the name only because I'll be using Azure AD authentication to authenticate with my storage account. I will not be using the connection string or API keys. I'll be working with Azure AD authentication. Okay, so let's get started by creating the resource group. Let's say RG indexing tutorial dev storage account create str indexing tutorial dev review and create. From past couple of days, I'm observing that the resource provisioning time has increased quite a bit. For Azure AI Search, it was taking 2 minutes earlier, but now it's taking almost 15 to 20 minutes. Is it because of my internet connection? But not sure. Anyway, let's put the storage account name. Let me just format this out. Okay. And also let me also increase the size here. Let's make it 125. Hopefully it is much better to be visible to you all. And in order to authenticate with Azure AD, there are various priorities that are given for authentication. The first priority is this one, that is Azure Service Authentication. So the first priority is given to this Azure Service Authentication. Okay. Next priority is given to, well, there are many. I don't remember the order, but let me just authenticate with two of the possible ways. One is Azure Service Authentication and another one is CLI authentication. Another thing, when you're authenticating with Azure AD, make sure the developer account has access to certain resources. For example, if I'm the developer, I want to interact with the blob storage, so I must give the permission as storage blob data contributor. After deployment, the same user authentication will be replaced with the managed identity authentication. So for now, I'm just going to give myself the role of storage blob data contributor. Okay, now let's move to program.cs file. And here, before adding the services, let me add the dependencies. Few things I added. The one thing is, if I'm working in my local environment, what credentials needs to be used and from where those will be coming from. I made sure that I get all the secrets from the key vault, and also during my local development, I'll be authenticated using Azure AD, but after the production deployment, it will be authenticated using the user assigned managed identity. So here I'm getting the app configuration, and I need to put that app configuration connection string and also the version label that I'll be using. So I've come here to create the app configuration. Let's create that. Along with app configuration, I also need the key vault. I'll go to app configuration, get the connection string that will be here, access keys. So I only need read-only keys. I will not be writing anything to app configuration during the runtime. Perfect. The first connection string that I would like to add is, before that, let me add myself the role assignment in order to read the configuration data. So that is app configuration data reader. This is a role I need to assign it. And I'll go to configuration explorer, key value. I'll not put anything in the key vault as of now unless it is a secret. This setting I'll be keeping it here, that is Azure storage account name. And the label that I was using is this. The label is very much helpful if you are targeting multiple environments and you want to keep one single app configuration. And this is of type text/plain. Okay, now I can get rid of this from here. Perfect. Coming back to program.cs. Okay, looking at this, with this statement, I'll get to know that if it is a local environment, and here I'm using default Azure credential. It can be CLI, it can be Visual Studio's logged in credential, or the tools we have used, right? So that one. So it can pick up any of them based on its priority. Okay. So after that, I'm adding the app configuration. I can also connect this app configuration to Key Vault from here, keyword reference that I can do. But as of now, I have not stored anything yet, so it can be stay as it is. And whatever the connection strings or secrets are part of this app configuration will be referred here, and it will be part of my configuration property. So if I just use iConfiguration interface, I can access all the properties that are part of this app configuration. The only thing that is changing during the deployment or in production environment is this one, user assigned managed identity. That is the only thing that is changing. And using this, we get the access token, and with that managed identity, we authenticate with app configuration or keyboard, both. And during production, if I want to keep the same label, I can keep, else I can change it to the prod environment. Okay. Now, this was all about the app configuration. Next thing is to configure the services. Let's start. Okay, so I just updated few other things here. One thing is we already discussed how to configure the app configuration. Next thing, we would like to add all the Azure SDK clients in the dependency injections so that I need not initialize them or authenticate with them in my service class. I can directly inject all the service clients directly inside my service class. So this is one change that I did. In order to get the configuration data, I added host context. Earlier it was only services. Next, this one I added, add Azure clients. This one I copied it from the Azure documentation. Let me quickly show you. Azure for .NET developers. This is the place I copied it from. Add Azure clients. Add blob service client. This is the one that I did. Well, slight modifications I did, but yeah, this is the place I copied it from. Okay. Now, coming back, let me go to service class. Let me add something Azure. Let's start by creating some service classes now. Storage. Let me move this here, that would be much better. And let me edit this. Storage blob storage helper. Okay, now since I injected the blob service client, I can refer it here. In order to refer that, I need to install the package, that is Azure Blob. Okay. Then let's add that blob service client. then this is how I can use it. This is already a authenticated service client. I can use it to get files, I can use it to get all the blob container details, everything, since this is an authenticated Azure client. If at all I don't want to inject them in dependency injection in my program.cs file, I need to authenticate with them individually here in the constructor. That is also another way of doing this. Okay. Now, let's do, let's start. Authentication is already done. Let me not do anything here. Okay. Let me see if I can add the search service client. Let me see if I can achieve that. So here's the documentation. I am in the Azure SDK for .NET. I am in the overview page of search. And here I need to authenticate the client. I have two ways of doing it. Either using the API key and either using the Microsoft Entra ID authentication. So let's start with Entra ID authentication. Let me go to the home page. This was my search service that I was trying to use. I'll go to access control, role assignment. Here it is all mentioned what roles you need to assign it yourself. Let me show you that. This is the one. These are the roles. So I'll be assigning myself search service contributor, read write access to object definitions, and this one as well for data as well. I think this is the one that I mostly need. Okay. So what these two have difference, let me quickly check. For the permission, this role can't access the content in an index, so no querying or indexing, but it can create, delete, and list indexes, return index definitions, status. For search as service administrator, we need to manage the search service and its objects without content access. Okay. So I need both of them because in the runtime, I would be creating the index, deleting the index, and also I'll be adding content in the index. So these two both I need: search service contributor and search index data contributor. Search service contributor. Next is search service index data contributor. This is a, let me cross check if that was a correct name. Yeah, search index data contributor. So I'm also using the best practices like assigning minimal roles that is required to get the job done. Okay, so this also done. Now let's move back to the create a client using Microsoft Entra ID authentication. Search client. Let me see if I have something. Yes, here it is. Add search client. So let me install the library Azure Search. If I am not wrong, this is a correct library. Azure Search Documents. Yes. Go to program. Let's add this. Okay. So here in my case, it is client builder. Okay. So what all it needs? It needs configuration and what else it needs? Okay. Search client. All right. Let me add these two properties in my app configuration. Search client colon endpoint. And let's get that. This is the endpoint. And also please note I might have multiple indexes that I need to authenticate with. That is also another op that is also another option. But here what we are currently doing, we are authenticating with one index as of now. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, let me name the index as this is my index name. So before moving further, I would like to test this out if it is working as expected or it has some issues with the dependency injection. So yes, let me first try it out. But before that, let me create one more folder for AI. Search helper. Since I added search client, so let me just add it here as well. Search client. So I need to install that package. And also one more thing, I need to add these services, the search helper and blob storage helper inside my dependency injection. Now I can use these two services here in indexing function, but I'll not use them yet. Let me first run this out so that I don't face any issues as such. I just added the breakpoint so that I can see what is being fed in the configuration and if it has all the values that is required. Local environment, that's true. Default Azure credentials, that's fine. So let me see if this has any properties in here. So here you see I have three sources. Let me see if I have four sources after adding this. That's correct. I have now four sources. The one is we added is Azure app configuration. Okay. So now let's see if it has all the properties that are needed. Providers are four and Azure app configuration provider, data, you see. Search client index name, that's there. Azure storage account name, that is also there. Search client endpoint, that is also there. Perfect. Let's see if it is able to authenticate. Perfect. Till now, it's fine. Let me also call this API. Okay, I think I don't have. Okay, I don't have a breakpoint. That's fine, but still getting the response. So till now, so far so good. Let me stop debugging and let's continue. Okay, let us continue. We tested that our function is working fine as of now, even though we modified some of the program.cs configuration, dependency injection stuff. And yes, now let us deserialize our request body and put it into the properties of the class file that we created. that is indexing function request. So let's do that. Indexing function request. Okay, so let's import these and also refer our models project. All right. I'm going to specifically mention all the data types just for the best practices. And also, let me just to validate that if request body is present. Okay. So if it is null or empty, I'm going to return back bad request as the response. Else, I'm going to deserialize it. This, let me put it here. Okay, so let's cross check these as let's cross check indexing function request as well. But before that, okay, let me check. If indexing function request is not is equals to null, logger dot log error, indexing function request is null, and what will be returning it back? Let us send back bad request. That will be good option. All right, so till now, so far, so good. Let's quickly test this out. The first test I would like to do is send the request without the request body and see what we get. We get 400 bad request and also check the console. Request body is empty. Okay, let me test one more thing. String dot is null or empty. String dot is null or empty. Indexing function request dot indexing type. Okay, now it would reply perfectly. Bad request, and what's the error? Indexing function request is null. Okay, and if I just make it perfect, 200. Okay, so far so good. I can also optimize this piece of code with respect to, I think, .NET 7 or 8. This has been concised. There is a one shorter version of using this. All right, let's continue. We deserialize this. Now we have the properties. Okay, let's now create a new folder in service class, and I'm going to make that system. Or best way, I don't need a folder. I'll keep it as the root folder, because that is the only one point contact that I would be using. Indexing helper. That is the one point contact that I'll be using. And from here, I will be calling the search helper as well as blob storage helper. Let's see if any of them are not required. We can change that later. Okay. And also I'm going to add that to dependency injection. Perfect. Let us also add it here in the function class. Okay. I also wanted to add this iLogger as well in my other classes. So let me add at the top. So far, so good. Okay. Now let me create a function method that would start the process, the actual process. And I'm going to name this as start async, and that would be async task, and it takes the input as indexing function request. Okay, so what does it say? This async method lacks a wait operator and will run synchronously. That's fine. Okay, so the first thing that I would like to test is indexing type. Here I created the switch condition, and I'll be adding all the indexing types now in here so that I can go to the respective function. For now, I'll be just adding, I guess one is more than enough for now. Later, I'll be adding other ones. Okay. So first one is more than enough. Okay. Next, what we need to do, let's do start full text search JSON async indexing async. Okay. And I'll be passing the blob container. Let's create a function out of this. Perfect. This is the starting point for all the indexing operations. Okay, perfect. I would like to return back the Boolean response so that I come to know that the indexing has completed. So let's make that return, and let's remove this break. So return false. Okay, and here also I need to change the return type to Boolean. Okay, this time it's good. Okay, so now few things we would like to implement. Implement the logic. Okay, let's start by straightforward approach. Get the JSON file from the blob container. That's our first task to do. Second, I think yes, read the JSON file. Okay, that's our second step. Create the index. Upload the content to the index. So these will be our steps that we would like to follow. But one more thing that I recently remembered is indexing operation. So the values for this is replace. What does this mean? So let me also note down this. This is indexing type, indexing types, indexing operations. The first would be replace, new. Second will be, well, I won't say new, I'll just say replace. Second would be append. Only two types. What does this mean? Create a new index or replace an existing index. Append the content to an existing index. if it exists. Else, it would create a new index. Both operation it will do. Okay. So let's use replace, and I'm going to put this property here. And also by default, if this is not specified, it will be replace. That will be best option to get started with. So these are the 4 steps that we'll be performing. The first step would be getting the JSON file from the blob container. So we have the blob container with us, the name of the blob container, and let's go to blob storage helper and let's see. Okay, so this is the for getting the blob content async. Okay, it's the new day and we were at getting the blob content from the Azure blob storage, and it requires blob container name and the blob name. So let's quickly implement this. So I'll go to Azure blob storage, C# documentation, and get few things from there. So make please note, authenticate to Azure and authorize access to blob data. That we have already done. Create a container we don't need because that will be done from the externally from different application or manually. Upload a blob. Yes, again it will be done from another application. List blobs. That's an important one that we would like to call before getting into this method. So let's implement that. List blobs in a container. So let me make that method name as get blocks async. And I'll be passing container name. Okay, so next let's follow the documentation and what it says. Await for each blob item in container client dot get blob async. Okay, I think this is the one. It also creates it also creates a container client that I'm not sure why I did not create it. I think it was created earlier only. Okay, so let me go back in create container and there it is. We have the container client. Get blob container client. Perfect. And get blobs async. Get blobs async. Okay, this seems to be fine. And now it has the blob item dot name. Next thing, we'll be downloading a blob by calling this method and also reading its content. Okay, so for each blob item that we have, we would like to download the file, extract the content, and let's put them into a string. And here we will be saving that into list string item. And this will be blob contents. Okay. And here it will be this one, add dot blob contents dot add, and we'll be calling this particular method by passing in the container name and blob item dot name. Perfect. Next comes the downloading blob. So we will be downloading into a local file path and then reading it out. I think that will be a perfect way to do it. Let me divide this out. That will be much better. Okay. We have container client. Okay. So for this case, we do not need container client. Let's pass it along with this one only. Let's pass container client while calling this method. That will be much better. Okay, blob container client and blob name. So we don't need this. Next, blob client, container client dot get blob client, perfect, response, download content async, stream reader, read to end. Okay, so it stores it in string. Okay, let's see how we can achieve that. Download to async. Instead of that, let's follow this approach. That will be much better. Local path. Let me put it into local path. Okay. Get temp file name. Okay. Next, with that we have the downloaded path. I think I need to do these things first. A local path, data, create directory. Uh, it should be. Hopefully, it doesn't throw any exception if the directory is already there. Creates all directories and subdirectory in the specified path unless they already exist. Perfect. File name. File name. I would like to keep it as blob name. So let's remove this one. Instead of this, I'll keep it as blob name. Perfect. Local file path I have now. Next. Next should be to download it. So download file path. This is the one. Let's make that local file path. That will be much better. Okay. After this, I want to read it. Read the content of the file. No, it will be. Okay, that is correct. Return content. Perfect. I think this is it that we wanted. Let's see if it actually works or not. We need to check it out. Okay. And also I can do what I can do. I can just move this functionality. I can move this functionality to a different method so that I only keep the things that are required. Private get downloadable file path. Okay, and it needs blob name, and it takes in string as the return type. So let me just make that return. Okay, and here it will be this one. Okay, now it seems to be ordered perfectly. Let's see if it works fine or it has some issues in between. Let's find out. And after this, we would like to return blob contents, and let me change the return type. That will be list string. Okay, and this we will be calling from indexing helper. That will be better. Okay, get blobs async. So let me make that list blob contents. Perfect. This is what we wanted. And for now, I'll just return true. The reason being I want to test this out if I actually get the blob contents or not. Before that, I need to generate a JSON file and upload it to the blob storage. Let's do that. Let's go to ChatGPT. Create a JSON on the topic quantum computing having. Okay, the JSON file that I would like to use must contain an array of objects. Each object will have few properties. Create a JSON array. Let me specifically mention that with create a JSON array with, okay, let me say JSON array on the topic content having multiple objects with properties title, content, keywords, ref URL. I think this would be fine. Yeah. Let's see if ChatGPT can do that. Okay, it actually does it. Perfect. Okay, let me ask ChatGPT make that 20 objects in total. Okay, let me just stop uh, because I just find out some issue is there. The keywords must be comma separated values, string values. Okay, there it is. Perfect. I have now sufficient data with me. I can just copy this code, go to Notepad, create a new file, paste it here, save this, and let me put it into desktop. Make that quantum computing.json. For now, we'll be starting with one file at a time, and then maybe in the future, we'll work with the multiple files kept in the container. I'm going to upload this file and just thing, let me quickly check if I saved it into a JSON file only. Let me open this. Perfect. What was my container name? Let me make that. All set. We are ready to test it now. Internal server error. That's good. Let's see what's the issue. Okay, so unable to resolve service for type Microsoft extensions login iLogger while attempting to activate indexing helper. Okay, did I not initialize it properly? Let me do to indexing helper. Okay, let me follow this approach. Let me also check if it is the correct library that I'm using. Yes, let's restart it. Hmm, again some issues. Okay, this time different error. Perfect. Invalid operation exception unable to find matching constructor while trying to create an instance of search client. Expected one of the follow sets of configuration parameters, that is endpoint index name, key, endpoint and index name. Found the following configuration keys, endpoint. Okay, so it takes endpoint and index name, but it is not able to do that. Let's go back to program.cs. Search client. See here? Here it is capital N, but in the documentation it was mentioned as small n. That can be the reason of this failing it. Okay, so I'll go to here, edit. I'm not sure if I can change the key name. I believe I cannot change it. So I'll have to copy this, discard, delete, add a new key value pairs. Okay, now let's start again. Perfect, perfect. That was the mistake. Alright, so it deserializes it. Fine. Oh, yeah. We never called our actual method. We need to call it here, indexing helper, and that should be done over here. Await, indexing helper start async. Okay. And does it have a return type boolean? Yes, it does have. So we can make that if create response 200, okay, indexing operation completed successfully, else else internal server error. That will be fine. Let me get rid of this. Advanced format document, close this out, restart. Okay, some error. What's the error? Okay, it should be task and this one. Okay, perfect. Let's start again. Let me put a breakpoint here and here. Perfect, perfect. I have the blob quantum computing.json. I'm not sure what all these errors are coming. Probably some timeout or something, but I am getting that. Perfect. Next, local file path. Fine. Download to async. Content. There it is. This is exactly what we wanted, and we are actually getting it. That's really cool. Return content. There's no another item. Now we have in our list one object, one string content, and return. Perfect, perfect. Let's say indexing operation completed. We should be getting a response. Nope. Didn't we got the response? Let me. What's the error actually? Why didn't we get the response? Hmm. The function with ID already exists. Anyway, I would be saying that this should be a temporary one. Okay, that should be a temporary one. But at least we are getting the JSON string over here. And now we should deserialize it and put it into our object class. Okay. But I think deserializing it's fine, but it's best to keep it in the dictionary. That will be much better. Okay. Let's try to achieve that. I found that I should be keeping that in JSON array instead of list string. So let's try to modify that. Here I'm just changing the return type to JSON array. And over here I would like to merge all of them. Okay, let's do that. Perfect. Now we will be merging everything into one single JSON array. That is my merged content. Perfect. Next. Next, I have input documents. Another optimization I can do, I can move this functionality in get blobs async. So instead of getting list of array, I can just get the single merged array in a string format. That will be much better. So let's make that string merged array. Merged content will be better. So let me move this over there. So this would come here. Okay, merged content, and this will be like this: merged content dot merge, and this one. So this would also contain JSON array, right? So this just contains JSON array over here. Let me change the return type. That will be merged content. Okay, I think I'm just returning string, right? So let me make that string dot toString. Perfect. And I need to change it here as well. Well, here nothing is required. It's as it is. Perfect. Now let's move back here. This functionality we have reduced. These input documents will be the one that will be uploaded into the index. And we are converting that to dictionary, having keys as string and object as its values. And that will be merged content since it is already a string, so I don't need to convert it again. And here what I am doing, I'm adding a unique identifier for each of my documents. If suppose you don't have the ID property already mentioned in your data, you can specifically add that here. Okay, you can specifically add that. So it's just a unique identifier for each of your documents. All right. I was thinking I can also move this functionality in get blocks async. Let's do that so that I just keep more space over here and add it here. So input documents, that will be merged content dot toString, and I add input documents, and let's send input documents instead. That will be much better. Input documents. Also, let me modify the return type as dictionary. Perfect. So now we made it very much concise, and this will be input documents. Perfect. Now we have only one call. Next, read the JSON file. Since we have already done, let's remove it from here. Next important task, create the index. For creating the index, we need to create the schema of the index. Schema in the sense, we need to define the properties, what each property does, such as is it a searchable property, is it a simple property, simple field, is it an array property, or is it a vector property. So all these functionalities, features of this index, we need to define it now. Okay, let's start. So to start with, I'll be going to Azure Search. Let's go to full text search. Also, these such as input documents, getting an index field, everything I have copied from here only. It's all part of this documentation. And this is the one that I was talking about. Creating a class. In this class, whatever fields that you have will be part of the index. All right. So let's create this. Welcome back. So I just added one more statement over here, add search index client, because that will be needed for performing most of the operation. So we need two clients from Azure AI Search, that is search client, and the second one is search index client. And this I'm still not confirmed whether the configuration that it takes is the same type or is it a different type. I just asked Copilot like what type of configuration does it take, because search client takes in the configuration in this pattern. So does search index client also takes in the same pattern or is it different? We'll come to know once we test this out. So let's move back to indexing helper. Here we have added search helper, and here we'll be adding one more, search index client. Perfect. Next. So this was the first operation that we were doing. We got the input documents. Now we can continue further by creating the index. Before creating the index, we need to create the schema of the index. So let's start that. So whatever index that you create, you need to create index specific schema. So our content is related to quantum computing, so we'll be creating that. So I'll go to models folder, search. Let me make that index. Let's search for Azure AI Search, quick start, full text search. This is the one. We'd like to copy paste similar class from here. I also want to I also need to install these packages, Azure Search Documents, not there in the models project. Now I can import them. Perfect. I can just get rid of this. Okay. So I have one property called as ID, and that will be is key equal to true, is filterable, we don't want, and its JSON property name is just the ID. Next property that we have, let's look at our JSON file. This was our JSON file. ID property will be appended during the runtime, that we already have the code written for that. Like for each object, new ID will be added and it will be incremental numbers that will be added. Next thing is title. Is sortable equals to true? We don't want that as well. It's a simple field. Oh no, it's a searchable field. But we don't want this attribute. Next is content. And that is also a searchable field. We can make analyzer, lexical analyzer, name, values, English Lucene. And that will be again searchable field. Next, what do we have? We have tags. And that's a array string. But in our case, it is a comma separated values. So let me add here as well keywords. And again, it is just a simple searchable field. We don't have much of this yet. I can just get rid of this property. Next one is keywords. Okay, keyword is done. URL. This we can keep it. Is it filterable, phase table? Phase table is nothing but if you have a group of product that you can combine them together. For example, category, department. So these are group of product. You can add this phase table on top of that. That's the terminology called as phase table. Okay. Next one, let's remove these. So this is the properties that we need: ID, title, content, keywords, and URL. And then we are good to go. Now let's look at the next steps. Create index. This is also important field. Upload documents. So it is doing it like this. We'll not be following this approach. We have our own approach that we will be following. All right. So far so good. Next, create an index. We have the search helper. Next, I'll be calling one method under search helper that will be create or update index. Let's create that method. Let's make that async. Go back to search helper. This is our method. Let's implement it here. So I'll be copying this create index and let's move back. So I just copied the create index code. Let me get rid of this comment. And it was taking index name. We don't need, yes, we do need search index. Search index client we don't need because we have added that into dependency injection. And index name, let's get it from the configuration file. That will be better. Okay, this I can just get rid of. Hotel, in our case, it is quantum computing. Here it is configuration. It's so the read-only properties won't work under static. And let's make that public. That will be configuration. Let's cross check what we have mentioned it here. That is search client colon. Let's go back to Azure app configuration, or I can just cross check into GitHub Copilot. I have mentioned that. That is called index name. That is capital N. Okay. So that gets me the index name. Let's make that throw new null reference exception index name not found. And all the search fields I get it from my class file. This is search suggester. So it's mostly used in autocomplete. So let's try to implement that. Let's see if it is helpful for our scenario. And I have the property names as that will be content. Let's start with title and content. Let me add only these two. Okay, so in our case, it is search index client, create or update index definition. Perfect. Let's make that. Let's call this one create index from here. And that's not a wait. So our second step is also done, create the index. For vector index, we have a lot of extra steps that we need to write code for. But for simple full text search, this is very straightforward. Okay, so here we have create index. That's done. Next, final step, upload the content to the index. That's the final step. Let's look at the documentation, what we have it here. Load documents. So Azure AI Search searches over content stored in the service. In this way, you load JSON documents that conform to the hotel index we just created, and so on. So these all are here. But again, I'll not be following again this approach. That's what I can say, hard coded, and also it doesn't have the retry logic implemented, because you can only upload max to max of, I guess, 100 MB of data to Azure search index at a time. That's also a limitation. If you are going to create a vector index in future, then your size of the index will be huge, and you need to upload that everything to the search. So search service index only accept, I think, up to 100 MB. That's the limit in one go. So you need to wait for the next attempt. So that's again a retry logic also needs to be there. Also, if it is failing, that also we need to implement. So yes, let's implement that approach. To start with that, first we need to convert our dictionary into the type that is supported for uploading the documents. For that, we need list search document. This is the model that is supported by Azure Search, and this is how we add that. So every object needs to be added to this as a list item. Okay, now we are ready to upload in bulk. So let's add a logger message in batches, not in bulk, in batches. And I have code for that. Let me go to search helper, paste that code, upload documents in batches, and let me also add logger here. Okay, let's make that public and upload batch. And here we don't need search client. I already have search client here in here. Okay, so that will do the work. What is the error here? Yes, I don't need search client. Perfect. I think we have completed a lot of things here. Okay, that will be upload documents in batches. And what does it take in? It takes in search documents. What's the error? There is no argument that. Okay, let's go there. Delete this out. Next, what's missing? Okay. After this, we are going to return true. That's all. And all of these steps I'll be putting into try catch. What's the method name? Error indexing. And I'm going to print that message on the logger. And here I'm going to return false. Okay, so we are good to test this out. We already have uploaded the JSON file in our blob storage. We can cross check that. Also, one more thing to note, if your internet connection is slow and you're trying to index a lot of data, almost above 100 200 MB, then depending on your internet speed, it is going to upload in batches. So the slower your internet speed, the slower it takes to upload the documents to the index. So I have the file here. Now we're good to go. Let's start running. Perfect. I'm going to call this API. Okay, we have some issues. Okay, it's most probably for, okay, managed identity, get token. Okay, I think I know what's the issue. The reason being, since I'm using multiple accounts, I need to switch back to the account that it needs to be connected to. And after switching back the account, I also need to do AZ login. Now let's rerun it. Let's wait for the authentication to get completed. That's done. Let's start again. It's actually done. Executed indexing function. Okay, we have internal server error. I need to cross check what is causing that. So let's see. Okay, it's forbidden for Azure Search documents. Okay, let's see what we can do to fix that. So we have 20 documents having all the properties. See here, ID 0, ID 1. So it's incremental ID that is added. So the issue was over here. Let's see. Search index. Let's see. Okay, index name, it's getting it. That's good. So actual error would be here. Service request failed, forbidden. I was debugging for a while and I found out that the issue was here in my search service. Since I wanted to connect to this search service using the access control IAM, that is role based access control, I need to change that here to role based access control. Earlier it was set as API keys. Now I have made that to role based access control. Another thing that I changed just to get that thing ruled out, I removed the search index client from the Azure client and added that as a specific implementation by creating an object of search index client. Here I am authenticating with the search index client using the endpoint and the default Azure credential. I need to check whether the implementation that I added here would work or not, but for the time being, I added this. It's working fine. While it was working fine, I had one issue here. The error was in the suggest search suggestion. I need to provide them with the properties in the JSON format. Basically, I am using in JSON the lowercase character, so I need to put them as a lowercase character. So that was the only change. Let me rerun it. Perfect. It got executed perfectly. Next thing is to create the search document. So there are 20 of them. Let me just skip that and put my breakpoint over here. Then move to the next one. Then I can just continue. Let's see it over here. Okay, it got completed. That's fine. 200 okay. See, I got the response as 200 okay. Let's cross check if it is working. Let's cross check if I have the index created. There it is. At the for up to I think 5 minutes, it would still show as 0 documents, but you can open it and click on search to see your documents. See here, it takes some time, up to 5 minutes, for this to get updated. Don't worry, you have your documents updated over here. So this is all your documents. Go to fields. These are all the fields that you created and which are retrievable and searchable fields. Okay, I made title, content, keywords, URL. I did not make it at searchable. Let me cross check. Let's go to searchable. Okay, URL is also searchable. In URL, I also made it as filterable and face table. Let's see. See here, filterable, face table. And also analyzer, I'm connected that to content. This dimension is specifically for vector index. And autocomplete settings, here I added two fields, title and content. Okay. Rest all vector profiles are not required as of now. But yes, we successfully created our index. And here I can just make a search query. And here it would reply back. So this was the top score answer that was coming ahead. And yes, now I can connect this index to my Azure OpenAI service and start querying it. You can view our old videos, how you can connect your index to the search survey, how you can connect your index to Azure OpenAI and start querying it from there. For me, it won't work because I am on the free plan. Azure OpenAI integration only works with the paid plan, starting from the basic and standard plans and later on. If I refresh it, okay, still it's not updated, but yeah, it will be updated soon. All right. So that is all from my side in this one. See you in the next one. Thanks, everyone.